Well, this is very, very exciting, and I actually might get this boat finished in time for Flea Fest. It's been way too long since I've done a video on the restoration of the Jinx, and I thought I'd bring you up to speed. So the last time you were here, the deck was just plain plywood, and I ended up sanding that all down. I had to sand the plywood flush here with the sides and along the cockpit sides here, and that took a little bit of time. And then once it was all sanded down, I could then start to apply the epoxy. And it's whitened epoxy, exactly the same thing that I used on the hull. And I rolled the epoxy on using my dollar store foam rollers. So what you see right now is whitened epoxy using this West System 501 white pigment. And there are 3 coats of epoxy on the deck right now. Before I did anything, I took the time to mask off the chines here because I didn't want any stuff dripping down. So along the edge here, and then just some plastic wrap all the way around there. That's going to stop any stuff from mucking around here. So you can see there's a little bit of a drip here. When I peel the tape off, that will come off with it. So just like the hull, when I roll it on with the foam rollers, I get these micro bubbles here. And those are very easily taken care of with sandpaper. And I've used a combination of just regular 220 grit wet sandpaper, and along with this other stuff, which is kind of reusable. This is, what is this stuff here? It's the sand net sandpaper. So both types of sandpaper. This tends to last a little longer. This tends to break down a little quicker, but it does the job. So I have one more coat of epoxy to roll on. Like I said, I've already got 3 on here. I'm going to put 1 more on and then give it a good sanding to get the tiny surface bubbles out. At the same time, I need to start thinking about the graphics. So I could not find my original digital files for the graphics that I made for this in 2015. So what I've done is I've updated the font a little bit. And what I need to do now is get them laid out in Adobe Illustrator, but I need to measure exactly how big the graphics should be. This is why it's very important to take a picture of your boat before you restore it, so you have reference points to use. So this is a black and white printout of the before, and if you can see in my black and white print, and I showed you this on part 1, all of this checking on the plywood because it was delaminated. So the new stuff is looking phenomenal. So what I need to do before I send these off to Lisa Armstrong in Bracebridge, and she's going to do the vinyl stickers for me, is I need to measure how wide I actually need this graphic to be. So I have to go around and physically measure. So I'm probably looking at about 24 inches here to here. And then I need to measure how much space I have here on the actual deck itself. The other thing I need to be aware of here are the flames, because I'm going to redo the flames here on the side. So I need to know how much width I have here. So I'm going to measure that. And then I need to measure how far I need to come up here. The other thing I need to do is figure out my graphics here on the chine. So I need to measure again where this sort of stylized, curvy, checkered flag is going to go along here. I need to know how big my new numbers are going to be. So instead of 7115-F Jinx, the 71 indicates the first year that I had my first sea fleet, 1971, which is a bazillion years ago. The 15 indicates the year that this boat hit the water. So it was restored in 2015. But I'm going to have 7115-24F Jinx, and the 24 is going to indicate the year that the second restoration took place. So I need to measure physically on the chine of the boat how long this is, and then I can set up that particular dimension in Adobe Illustrator. And then likewise, it's a mirror on the other side. This checkerboard decal that's going to go onto here. I need to measure exactly how much width I need and the length that goes along this steering frame here. And then finally, of course, I need to measure how big I need these letterings. Now, in Ontario and in Canada, they very clearly state that the registration letters must be 3 inches high. So I really don't have any wiggle room with that. So to recap, 3 coats of epoxy. I'm going to put the 4th one on. And I've learned from the hull in terms of opacity. So you can see that the colored epoxy does not completely cover some of the filled epoxy that I've used underneath. So what I'm going to do this time on the hull is I'm going to put on the final 4th coat of colored epoxy, sand it down, and then before I put the green paint, the green fluorescent paint on that's going to match the hull, I'm going to put on a base coat of enamel paint. And that's going to create a solid white surface. So when I put on the green paint, I don't have to put on like coat after coat after coat after coat. And you can see here, I've used some low density filter. I've used some low density filler, and one more coat of epoxy, whitened epoxy, isn't going to cover that up. So everything will be spray painted with a base coat of white, and then I will apply the color over that. Once I have the green paint on there, then just like in the hull, I'm going to spray on this car rep. It's a 2K clear coat varnish here, and it is fantastic. It creates a very, very high gloss finish on it. And yeah, it's going to look great. So anyway, this is just a short little video. I won't actually show you how I've rolled the epoxy on because I've done that in previous steps. When I roll the epoxy on, it is identical to the hull, and you've already seen that. So we're getting close. All right, we will come back to you when I'm ready to apply the green paint.